Backyard Devotional.
Among my favorite Christmas Eve memories were the Christmas Eves we spent at my Aunt Stella's house. First off, Aunt Stella's house was absolutely spectacular. It was a Christmas wonderland full of lights and handmade ceramic figures which were absolutely everywhere. In addition, the gifts Aunt Stella gave me were always the best. Now, one reason why they were the best was because I was Aunt Stella's godson, which in the Greek Orthodox tradition guarantees a better gift. It's simply one of the rules. The second reason why the gifts I received from Aunt Stella were always the best was because of my cousin Cosmo, her son. You see, Cosmo was 3.5 years older than me. Now, when you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s, 3.5 years is absolutely nothing. It is a drop in the bucket. But when you're 9 or 10, 3.5 years is an absolute eternity. So because Cosmo was older than me, the gifts I received from Aunt Stella were always a little more grown up than the gifts I received from my parents. So we're there at the house, and Cosmo says to me, "Hey, do you want to see a gift that I got to open up already?" I said, "Sure, let's look at it." So we go downstairs, and there on the card table in his basement is a race car set. But not just any race car set. I know I've talked about this before. This was my favorite toy ever. It was a 2-lane figure 8 HO scale Aurora racetrack set with dual speed controls and a 20-volt transformer. I was 9 years old at the time. I saw this set up on the table, and I thought I was looking at something holy. I mean, it was like I was in toy heaven. The whole thing was so perfect. So Cosmo asks me, "Hey, do you want to play with this?" And I said, "Of course I do." So we plug it in, we put the cars on the track, and really for the next hour, we are just laughing as we're racing each other. And Cosmo would win a race, I'd win. It was just great. And eventually, my parents call and said, "Hey, it's time for us to leave." So I go upstairs, but before I go upstairs, I picked up that box with that the race car set came in, and I'm looking at this, and honestly, I'm thinking that every single toy I have at home is like a baby toy in comparison to this. I turned to Cosmo. I said, "Cosmo, this is the greatest toy that was ever made." So I put the box down, went upstairs, said my goodbyes. But then, just as we were heading out the door, my Aunt Stella stopped us and said, "Oh, I almost forgot." She ran into the other room, and she came out with a box. It was all wrapped up, and she handed it to me. And I knew it was too big to be handkerchiefs, and I knew it was too heavy to be clothes. I thanked her. We went into the car. I put that box on my lap, and on the whole trip home, I did not say a single word, but I knew. So the next morning, it was the very, very first gift I opened up, and there it was. It was just like Cosmo's, but it wasn't, because it was in my house and in my basement and on my card table. It was mine. And I plugged it in, and I put a car on the track, and I turned up the speed control. And just like at Cosmo's house, I was in toy heaven, but I was in toy heaven for maybe 5 minutes. You see, the toy needed something. It needed other people. It needed my brother and my sister, my mom and my dad, my friends from the neighborhood, my friends from school, my other relatives, my other cousins. I mean, it was great. But it was something that worked better when it was shared. Well, if that's true of a toy, how much more so the story of Christ's birth? I mean, how much more so the story of God entering his creation and becoming part of his creation and dying for his creation? I mean, how much more so the story of love come down from heaven and the reconciliation and redemption that followed? You see, it is the greatest story ever told. But it's even better when we share it with others. Amen.